My name is Austin Arthur, and this is the Orlando Real Podcast.
Today I'm interviewing Austin Arthur. He's running for commissioner of District 1 here in Orange County. Now, I don't usually get into politics one way or the other, and so I'm actually going to interview Austin this week and his opponent next week. I found it fascinating in regards to his insights and to maybe what's wrong with Orange County, what we can see improve for the future. Hope you enjoy it. So Austin, thanks for joining us, man.
Well, thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
So let's back it up. Where are you from originally?
Well, I'm originally from Miami. Us in Miami, very passionately, we say it's North Cuba. And right. But I don't speak Spanish, so they eventually kicked me out. That was about 17 years ago.
Okay.
Moved up to this area and never looked back. We love it. We live in West Orange County. My wife and I live in downtown Winter Garden. Yeah. Now, she's born and raised, so she's born and raised on the west side. She's seen all the change. She remembers when we were talking a little bit off camera, when Horizon West was nothing but orange groves and just a huge area with maybe just like 3 houses total.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's just been tremendous change. It's a much different place from Miami, but we are growing a lot, and it's reminding me of Miami. And from those mistakes, I believe mistakes of Miami, we learn. And I just want to make sure that we stay West Orange County. So
right on. It's interesting. I can't go anywhere in West Orange County. So we live in Horizon West. I can't go anywhere without seeing your face. So obviously, no, that's okay. You're doing something right. I mean, if that's where your marketing guy is, or you are. Yeah. So tell us, let's get right into it. What are you running for? What are you hoping to do?
Right. Well, I'm running for Orange County Commissioner. That's in District 1. So that's the west side of the county. Really, it's massive. It's Winter Garden, Oakland, all of Horizon West, Tildenville. You have Dr. Phillips, all of Windermere, Williamsburg, Hunters Creek. Now, I think I got all them all, but we probably missed something there. Right. But it's huge. It's 280,000 residents in this area that we're covering. And it's the biggest, it's the fastest growing district. It's the biggest district in Orange County. There are 6 districts in Orange County. So only the people that live in our district can vote for me. Okay. But when I'm on the board of county commissioners, we vote for everything, everything across the board on the county level. And so that's what the commissioner is. It's the person that creates essentially the laws at the county level. At the county level, we call them ordinances. And so we also have the biggest part and the most controversial is land use, what is going to go where, what is going to be approved. The future land use map is very important. Yeah. And what is the development going to look like moving forward, and what kind of development, who do we want to be? And that's all decided really at the BCC, the Board of County Commissioners. And so I'm running to be the next Board of County Commissioner, commissioner for the west side. Yeah. And it's a 4-year term. We're moving hard and fast, and it's looking good. Right
on, man. Well, so you're in an area that's booming with growth. And like you mentioned earlier, so we moved here 8 years ago. And I remember we drove around Horizon West is where we first were looking. And my wife's like, there's nothing here. And let's go. We knew Celebration. So we moved to Celebration. And then immediately which it's fine. We liked living there. It was good. We wanted something a little bit bigger and newer. And 3 years later, there's all of a sudden 5,000 houses in Horizon West. And then since then, there's been 20, 30,000. It's been amazing to see the growth. And I think that that's part of what you talk about when you're running, right? It's there's a lot of growth happening. What are some of the challenges then that come along with that growth?
Well, the number one thing is the infrastructure. Horizon West is a master planned community. It is planned. It is stated that there's going to be over 100,000 residents in Horizon West. And to give you an idea, there's about 55,000 in the city of Winter Garden. And so that's primarily, when you think a little bit more north, I know that there's some confusion on what is Winter Garden, what's not. We could talk about that too. Yeah. But it's a huge amount of people, and that number is approaching. But the problem is, the struggle is the infrastructure. So we know that it's a master plan community. We know the growth is going to come. But I believe we need to slow it down a little bit, because the promise was growth. The promise was 100,000 people, but there was never a promise that the infrastructure was not going to be there. As a matter of fact, you assume that the roads are going to be there, that you have capacity on the road. I mean, if you think about Avalon Road, that's a backcountry road. That's what you do to go down and visit all the orange groves down here. It wasn't to house thousands and thousands of cars a day. Yeah. And so that road is failing. It's been failing for a long time, but yet we see apartment building after apartment building going along Avalon Road, no real significant road improvements. Yeah. And that's a big issue. And then it's the schools too. We have overcrowding schools. We have children that are sitting in these portable, this is not safe. This is not proper. And so this is one of the biggest school districts in the state, and we have the ability to make sure that our kids are safe in those schools, and that we have capacity, and that's another thing you look at. Also, we have tremendous flooding issues. You know, you look at Reams Road, a little storm comes through and that thing's flooded for days. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And so that's all part of infrastructure. We have to make sure that the infrastructure comes first. In the state of Florida, because of the way a lot of this is funded, it's often the back. You know, it's in the back end. It's when the home's already there, the business is already there. It's being paid through ad valorem taxes, which is property taxes. And we just can't continue to play catch up. So we need a change of mindset.
So is that, I know there's, for the county level, I know Deming's put out like the extra half a penny for a while. Was that towards infrastructure? Is that to get ahead of it? Or is it strict? Like, how do you get ahead of it when you have to wait for tax dollars to come?
Yeah, I think that the problem is with the transportation tax, it started as a full penny and that was shot down quite severely by the residents. They said no new tax. And so then 2 years later it comes back around and they negotiated to a half penny taxes. That's not the point, you know. The point was the principle, and that we don't want a new tax for this issue. And the problem with it, though, why a lot of people didn't support it, that maybe were prone to support it, is it didn't have a lot necessarily to do with fixing the roads and stuff. You know, there wasn't a lot really allocated for that. It was a lot of multimodal and this kind of thing. A lot of things that would help.
Like so buses and that kind of thing.
Yes, and this is critically important. You know, we're for that. I'm for that. I'm for multimodal. But West Orange County wasn't designed for rails and buses and all this sort of thing. It just doesn't really exist out here very powerfully. So we could get to that. I believe in getting to that. But right now we need immediate relief. And that is the roads. We need to have road widening. I know that that's not the ultimate solution, but it's just like when I was a paramedic firefighter. You know, you have somebody that's bleeding. You don't try to sit there and pontificate the reason why they got to bleeding. You stop the bleeding, and then you fix the holistic way, you know. So we got to stop the bleeding in West Orange County, and that does mean road widening. It means new vessels of transportation, and then we also work on the multimodal. So that with the penny tax thing, which turned into a half penny sales tax, it was a failure. And I think that if that ever does come up again, there's going to be some significant changes that are needed to get that to pass.
I think it comes down to people knowing that the money that gets taken actually is going to go in the right place. So that's people trusting their politicians, or at least seeing it in writing where it says, hey, if we actually going to take this money in, we have to use it on infrastructure, right? Like I think that it was probably set up maybe a little improper. Like if I'm looking at it from a resident standpoint, I think that like, it was like, hey, we want to charge you more. Trust us. We're going to figure it out. Like that's not, it
I'm
needs
from
to
the
be
government and I'm here to help.
There you go. Yeah. And so, so yeah, it's interesting. I think it'll be kind of, so how do you get ahead of it though? Then answering the question of like, how do you get ahead of it and where houses need to come first in order to pay for it, but we need infrastructure first?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's no one solution. It's very difficult. It's a difficult problem because of the way these things are funded in the state of Florida. But there's things that you could do to make it better. And one of them is working in partnership with people. You know, we need a commissioner that's going to be able to motivate the staff to prioritize road improvements in our district now. A lot of these road improvements, the plans already exist. In some cases, there's already funding, but they're not being prioritized. And that needs to change. And that takes a commissioner that's going to work with staff, you know, not lambaste them from the dais when they're up there, but work in partnership with them. And also, when these projects come through, I mean, it has to be at the right place at the right time. We talk about things like apartments. You know, I know that that is part of the solution. We have a housing crisis in Orange County. We have a housing crisis in the state of Florida.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's supply and demand. I mean, that's the reality. You know, you need more units on the market to drive those prices down to make it more affordable for people. But it has to be at the right place in the right time. And what I say by that, right place, right time, right place, meaning it has to fit the character of the area. You know, you can't stick, 1,400 affordable housing units where people don't want it. It doesn't match the character of the area. But also it has to be the right time, meaning the infrastructure has to be there. So when you get a project that's going to come through, and let's say that maybe it's going to come through because it's very obvious the votes are there from the commission because it takes seven different people that are voting. It's 6 commissioners and a mayor. You got to negotiate with them. These developers, they got to do their part. They got to widen the road in the section that they're impacting. There's things you could do with, we hear a lot about impact fees.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that, you could do impact fee credits, and there's a lot of misunderstanding on what that really is. Impact fee credits is not a forgiving of the impact fee. It's saying, hey, listen, why don't you do this road improvement here? Why don't you widen this section of Avalon, put a light here for this intersection on Reams, whatever the case may be. And you get credits based on that value of the improvement that they're doing. Because with impact fees, otherwise it just goes into this pot. And this pot of gold, well, it's not the commissioner that's really deciding that, it's the staff, and it goes somewhere else. So you have these projects coming in on Avalon Road, and we say, well, where's all the impact fees? Well, they're going over there by Universal Studios to fix something, whatever the case may be. Yeah, it's these different zones that they're allowed to utilize impact fees for. So that's why it's a failing system, and we see it's a failing system because you see these things being erected, all these apartments and everything, but you don't see the roads being improved upon. Very rare do you see it.
Yeah, I just got back from Nashville with a bunch of the leadership from Orlando. Mayor Dyer's there. There was a bunch of like big hitters from Orlando, and we got to hear from their mayor about how they work on infrastructure and how they work on overall growth. And one of the things, the big takeaways that I had was like a simplified code and a simplified vision, where I feel like Orlando is very like, you've got the city doing their own thing, the county's doing their own thing, everybody has their own agenda. How do you get on the same page, like everybody rowing in the same direction?
Well, it's a great point, and we're seeing it laid out right before us right now. So all these annexations is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's different approaches. There's a no approach, where it's just kind of a hodgepodge, and you don't know what to expect from county staff. And the city of Orlando, who is not exactly seen as a bastion of the free market system, they're being preferred by development and by businesses and landowners.
Why is that?
And you see people annex in. Well, because, you'll hear the Mayor Buddy Dyer, he'll say, like, look, our system's predictable. You know what you're going to get. There's a process. It's laid out, and you're not going to get a surprise. And so people prefer that. It's not so much that they could just build whatever they want. It's that they have something that's predictable and people that they can work with. On the county, it seems like the goalpost is always being moved. There'll be a project coming in, and all of a sudden the commissioner will throw a loophole right from the dais there in the meeting for approval, saying, well, we need X, Y, Z. Meanwhile, come to find out that our commissioner in District 1, never met with the applicant on the projects. So they're expecting to get approval. Chuck Whittle's been through this. There's a video of Chuck Whittle, who's a huge developer out here.
We interviewed him, yeah.
Yeah, and he said, look, I tried to call you 3 times. We have the receipts, we have the voicemails, and you never got with me on this project. And then she's from the dais making all these new demands, and it's terrible. You can't deal with people like that. And she said, well, maybe you don't have the right phone number. And then he had it memorized, actually, so he definitely had the right phone number. He spouted it off like that. But it's the culture of Orange County. It's a real problem. And I believe that culture, well, it trickles. It's downstream from leadership. It starts with leadership. So you need somebody that's going to meet with people. You got to show up to do the job. You got to sit down, even people you disagree with. I mean, there's so many projects that I know I'm against, but I'm ready to meet with those applicants. Maybe there's something where we can meet halfway, and work together on it. But when you stonewall people and you throw them off in the public, because Orange TV's on, you want to make a big show, that's not leadership. That's activism, and it doesn't work. That's why you see everybody annexing into the city of Orlando, into Apopka, into Winter Garden.
That's interesting. So people that don't know what annexation is, can you explain that?
Sure. So naturally, you're in unincorporated Orange County. Unincorporated meaning that there's not a city in that area or in that piece of land or a town, a municipality. So let's say you have a plot of land, you have 100 acres and you want to do something on it, and you're having a hard time in unincorporated Orange County, but you're abutting the city of Orlando. So you're allowed to voluntarily annex into the city of Orlando if you're abutting it right there and become part of the city of Orlando. Mm-hmm. So you're still part of Orange County. You're always part of the county. Mm-hmm. It's kind of likens to, because people understand pretty well state versus federal.
Sure.
You have your president and you have your governor. It's not a perfect analogy, but it is similar. So your federal government would be likened to the county, and your state government would be likened to the city. So there's still some control on the county level. You still got to pay those county taxes, but there's some more freedom and liberty. So people prefer to annex, to go into these cities and these municipalities, these townships and things like this.
Because they know what they're going to get.
They know what they're going to get. The accusation is, because they'll let them develop anything they want and they'll build 1,000 apartments. That's not necessarily really true.
But if they want to build 1,000 apartments, they know what the rules are going to be.
They know what the rules are going to be.
And
it's
so
predictable.
It's predictable. And that was the one thing we took away from Nashville when we did this trip was like, hey, listen, we took a 300-page book of codes and stuff for developers, and we made it 30 pages. And we said, if you do specifically this, whether it's impact fees, whether it's doing the roads around there, whatever it is, they want to know the rules they're going to play by. Because if they're going to invest hundreds of $millions in a project, they want to know what the outcome's going to be. They don't want to go 2, 3, 4 years spending millions of dollars on studies and all this other kind of stuff only to get, locked up at the end. I couldn't imagine like as somebody doing it. So I get the annexation, but it's not just the city of Orlando, right? It's a Coe, it's a Popka.
Yes.
There's a bunch of other ones.
Yes.
And for those of you that don't live in Florida or don't understand this, like I'm from Michigan originally. And so where I lived outside of Detroit, there was no unincorporated Wayne County. Like everybody had a city, right?
Yeah.
So it's very weird that we have two mayors here and we have
Sure.
two like governing bodies and that kind of thing. So how do you get them both on the same page? Because we are all one big area. We all want better for our family and better for jobs and all that kind of stuff. But you've got Seminole County that's doing something very different than Orange County that's doing very different than the city of Orlando. Like, how do you get everybody on the same page?
It's just a different mentality. You have to have a partnership mentality. You got to be willing to sit down with people, the other municipal governments. I mean, look, I'm endorsed by every single mayor and commissioner in the west side of the county, District 1 Orange County, that has endorsed during this campaign season. They've endorsed our campaign. That's against an incumbent. That's a powerful statement because this politician that is currently the commissioner, she's made no efforts to work with these people. And it's not just land use issues. It's also, our sheriff's office and our police departments. We need to be working together in partnership. We need to sit down. We need to put the politics aside. Republican versus Democrat, very important issues. I care about those issues, all the issues of the day, abortion, gun rights, all that stuff. I'm actually privately involved in many of those things, but I don't bring it to the table for this campaign. I don't bring it to the table when I do my not-for-profit work.
Sure.
That has nothing to do with it. So we need to put the partisan stuff aside. We need to start to work together because with this annexation problem, it's a big deal.
It's a very big deal.
And a lot of people say, well, they're just leaving to go into the cities. We got to stop them because they're just trying to develop, and it's terrible. Well, a lot of times it is terrible. We're tired of overdevelopment. But the problem is not the cities. The problem is the county.
Yeah.
They're fleeing the counties for a better option, and that's what needs to change. That doesn't mean we believe in developing everything. I certainly don't. I've been railing against overdevelopment in West Orange County for years, way before I was elected. But I believe in sitting down with people and making sure that they have a process that they can understand and know what to expect.
Hey, we're going to break from the interview for just a minute. If you live in Orange County or anywhere in Central Florida, my team and I want to be your real estate resource of choice. If you're looking to sell or buy a house, we've got over 1,200 five-star reviews on Google. Check us out at theorlandoreal.com/real. So on the ballot in November, there's actually going to be, people can vote on this, right? So in November, like, should the county remain being able to say if they can annex out or not, right?
Yes, exactly. So talking about the November ballot, I'll answer your question. But more importantly, when people in West Orange County get their ballot, it's going to be long. It's like 4 pages. On that front page, if you go to the bottom right-hand corner, if you live in District 1, you'll see a name. It's Austin Arthur.
Yeah.
And you need to bubble that in.
Okay.
That's the first thing you need to do, Austin Arthur. And then you go to the presidency and you do whatever you want there. I don't care. President Trump, Harris, whatever. But bubble Austin Arthur first, and then you decide. And then there's many other things on the ballot. In the ballot also, a couple pages down, is these amendments.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, there's an annexation amendment, there's a rural boundary amendment, and they're very controversial for several reasons. I'm for the rural boundary amendment. I support it. And there's actually 2 of them related to this. I support both of them. And what that does is it makes it a little bit tougher for somebody to change the land use in a rural settlement. They need a supermajority of the commission to do it. And so I believe in that. I say, listen, we should make it tougher to change our rural settlement. The rural means rural. We need to keep it rural.
What would that be right now? That would be like right now, which is the annexation from the Mormon church is going to go into the city, right? That's a lot of that's rural. It's all agricultural land. Yeah. So you need a supermajority to change that into houses, retail, commercial.
Correct. You would need a supermajority. So it's a harder threshold to get that many people to agree.
Is that 6 people, 5 people?
5 people, yeah. So you would need that supermajority. That's the vote on that. I believe in that. I think that's fine. It should be a resounding yes to be able to do something like that. Otherwise, we're going to end up with concrete everywhere. Our flooding issues are going to persist. Yeah. Our infrastructure is going to continue to fail. And so I think the threshold should be high for the rural settlement, or rural boundaries. But here's the thing. The second amendment, the other amendment that's related to this, is that it disallows individuals from annexing in without that similar vote from the commission, whereas now they have the liberty to take their property and say, no, I want to be in Winter Garden. I want to be in Apopka. And the intention, of course, is good because it's also trying to slow the growth. I believe in that. But the result is very bad. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think it's unconstitutional. And you will have people that will contest it. They already are contesting this. They're legally challenging it. And so you're going to have these voters vote this in because they don't really know the facts. and it's going to go for a legal challenge. It happened with rent control. We saw rent control. They put it on the ballot. Nicole Wilson put this thing on the ballot, rent control. They're going to control the rent to try to help
which is against the state constitution.
And Nicole Wilson knew that. As a matter of fact, the lawyer for the county said, this is going to be preempted. This is a problem. Put it on the ballot anyway. We don't care. So what happens is hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent. The taxpayers has to foot the bill for this legal challenge. It gets thrown out. But what else happened? Not only did taxpayers have to pay all this money because we have radicals making decisions in Orange County government, especially named Nicole Wilson, but also you saw all these rent prices go up. Of course this is going to happen. We have a free market economy. You can't try to stifle the economy that way. There's consequences to trying to manipulate that free hand of the economy. So everybody that has these landowners, these property owners, they said, well, they're going to pass this crazy amendment here in Orange County. We got to raise our prices now to lock them in before this amendment goes into effect. So some people saw their housing prices go up 100%, their rentals. So it's terrible. These are people that really are struggling, and they suffered the most because of these radical type of amendments. And it's very similar with the annexation piece that's going to be on the ballot now. It's going to be legally challenged. It's going to get thrown out. And then now what you're seeing is the same thing happen. All these annexations are coming. A tsunami.
It's a tsunami. No, it literally is a tsunami. Like every government official I've talked to, they're like, there's all of these landowners are trying to hurry up just in case it gets through, so that they have, again, some certainty, which is what a lot of people are looking for.
Correct.
And as a landowner, I mean, I'm not a developer, but like as a landowner, I want to be able to say what I can do with my own land. I mean, that's just,
that's why I say constitutional. I mean, we're founded on property rights. I mean, this is John Locke stuff, I mean, it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And so things like rent control, things like stopping these annexations, it's hasty, it's activism, it's not leadership. We should have slowed down on this issue. We understand we got an overgrowth problem, the infrastructure, we want it first, but this is not how you handle it. This is how activists do things. And that's why I say we've had 4 years of an activist commissioner, and we've seen the results. It's been very bad for us. The roads haven't improved. As a matter of fact, things have gotten worse in 4 years. So now we need to go to leadership, and we need somebody that's going to meet with everybody, show up, and have the proper, mature discussions.
Right on. So let's talk about this is actually a fascinating piece. And we talked about this before the show of the last election, like just what just happened. I mean, the people that say, my vote doesn't really matter, I'm not going to show up on vote day. Unpack what just happened in regards to you getting in or not getting in and the last minute votes and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So my wife, I'll start this with a story. Every vote counts. My wife never was into politics. Her father has never voted before. And I'm pretty sure it's because he thinks that means he'll get jury duty. It's not true. You'll get jury duty anyway. But
I've never had jury duty. I've wanted jury duty because I wanted to be part of the process. I've never once been even summoned. It's the weirdest thing.
Well, neither have I, but I probably will before the election. That's what's going to happen to me.
Tie you up for a month. Yeah,
based on the irony of things around here. But when we first started dating, I said, listen, your vote is incredibly important. And so I told her, I said, in 2000, there was this whole thing. We remember hanging chads, this election, this crazy election, Gore versus Bush. Well, that election was pivotal for world history. And the reason is because of what happened just shortly after. A year later, we had 9/11. Al Gore would have handled 9/11 very differently than George W. Bush. And some will say better, some will say worse. That's not my point. We all agree it would have been handled very differently. Bush is very different than Gore. So world history has changed based on the outcome of this election. Well, this election was ultimately decided by 537 Floridian votes. 537. I mean, we all probably know 537 people, at least casually. Sure. So any one of us, if we were active during that election in 2000, we could have shifted world history because of this presidential election that was decided by 537 winter gardeners,
right.
Who knows? It's Floridians that did that. So I said, your voice is so important. Now, I never realized that we would have it even closer to home because our election for Orange County Commissioner was going to be decided in August. And everybody felt very strongly it was going to be decided in August. There was 2 names on the ballot. There was a write-in candidate. And normally what happens, there's 2 names on the ballot, somebody's going to win.
Yeah.
Because there's not 3 names on the ballot where, you have all these different choices. You have to get over 50%. So they call it 50% plus 1, over 50%. If nobody gets over 50% in Orange County, then it goes to a runoff election. So normally with a little write-in, maybe you get 12 of the goofballs' friends to write their name in. You know, it's real fun. They pull a little bit, but not enough to make it a statistical tie. And so normally somebody gets over 50%. So I think it's the first time this has ever happened in Orange County history where you had only 2 names on the ballot and it was so close that it's a runoff election. 2 votes. It was only 2 votes that separated us. And so because of 2 votes, now nearly 30,000 people voted. So this is a big number. It's not a small municipality election. That's a very small percentage. There's 150,000 voters in District 1. So we should have had a bigger turnout, but that's all right. But nearly 30,000 people voted. Only 2 votes made the difference. So we're at a runoff election, November 5th, like I mentioned earlier, on the ballot with President Trump and Vice President Harris. Do whatever you want there. Austin Arthur is going to be in the bottom right-hand corner. You got to take care of that first. And so it's just crazy. So it was very unexpected. I told my wife, I said, listen, we know what's going to happen. We're going to win or we're going to lose. But this is over come time August 21st.
Right.
And we thought it was going to be over. We were up 24 votes, and all the precincts were in. Apparently, some mail-in ballots were a little late to the party, and they shifted things around a little bit. That's okay. We won in-person day of voting. When people walked into a building, we won every time. We won 15% in-person voting. It was the mail-in ballots that we didn't win. Wow. And so we're working on that. We're going to change that. We think over 100,000 people will vote this time, and I think that goes better for us. We have a message that's very good for everybody that people are excited about.
Wild, man. That is so crazy. So I think about like the off-cycle stuff nobody shows up for, and yet you're talking about infrastructure. You're talking about massive things that affect what you're talking about actually affects my life a lot more many times than some of the state and federal stuff, right? Yeah. And so it's interesting to me, like the city of Orlando, I think the last time they had a mayor race, this was last year, there was like 17% of the city showed up. And I was like, but every single one of you will complain about something over the next 4 years.
Ain't that the truth?
And so, yeah, if you're out there, you got to vote.
I got a message for that. You know, I try to be nice. I love our residents, but people get upset about infrastructure, about the roads and everything. And I knock on these doors. You know, that's the time to answer because, hey, you could tell me what your feelings are, but a lot of the people, they won't answer the doors anymore. You know, they're looking to see if it's the Uber food or whatever. And leave it at the door. You know, nobody wants to answer the doors anymore. Sure. But I encourage people, if I knock on your door, it's probably me. I had one person that doesn't support me, and she made that very clear. She was yelling about Austin Arthur. He's terrible. He's a developer. I'm not a developer, actually. I have nothing to do with that stuff. But she didn't realize it was me. You know, this is a person that's not too plugged in.
Sure. They didn't see your face all over town?
The result, not too plugged in. The result is you hate Austin. Okay. I'm okay with that. We like the plugged in voters that are checking things out, that are studying, reading both candidates. And I encourage people to answer those doors because I'm knocking 100 doors a day.
Jeez.
Yeah. Because I believe in that. I believe in getting with the voters. I don't believe in sitting in the city of Orlando all day, you know, showing up to those meetings. Very important, critical part of the job. You know, we'll do that too. Mm-hmm. But we have to be with the voters and be with the residents to hear from them. So please, if I knock on your door, it's me. I have a hat. I look a little different with a hat and a T-shirt on. Yeah. But I encourage people to get involved. By the way, my father-in-law, he was feeling a little guilty about the 2 votes. So he registered to vote.
No way.
I mean, this is a guy, he's like 65 years old, never voted in his life. So I'm very excited that my father-in-law's first vote will be for Austin Arthur, his son-in-law.
That's pretty awesome. Hopefully
November
it's for you.
5th.
No, just kidding.
Make sure you remember Pops, November 5th.
So let's wrap up then. So what does it look like for you? Like why are you the guy? Like I you know, talking about, I understand your platform, but why are you the guy to implement what you're hoping to do?
Because I think we just need regular people in government a little bit more. We don't need ideologues. We don't need activists. You know, all those things are very important. It balances the system out. But in government, we need people that are not politicians. I am a regular guy. I live with my wife and our 3 kids in downtown Winter Garden with our little golf cart. And, you know, we go to church and lunch on Sundays. And this is who we are. I'm involved in the community. I think that's critical. We need a commissioner who's present in the community. I serve on 12 community boards, Habitat for Humanity, Challenge 22 to End Veteran Suicide, 8 Waves, Children and Family Services, many others. And I think that that's what we're missing. You know, people that are in government, they think they're a subject matter expert on everything, and it's a problem. You know, we need to do our diligence as in leadership, but leadership is different. Leadership is not activism. Leadership is sitting down and showing up and listening to both sides, balancing out the dichotomy of opinions, and making a decision on the way to go forward. And you don't do that if you have blinders on. And so in business, we learned that, you know, you can't come in and treat people poorly. You need to treat the Orange County staff with respect. You need them to like you because it's a big district. And if you treat them with respect, maybe they'll start to prioritize some of these road improvements on the west side over here because the west side is the best side, but we seem to get the least amount of attention, even though we're the fastest growing, we're the biggest. Yeah. And I think that coming in with the partnership approach is the way to do it.
Well, now you just unpacked one more question for you. So, or for me. So you mentioned that these road projects are sitting on the side and it's staff's decision on which ones get pushed forward. Isn't this just like, hey, we need this so it all goes forward? Or like if somebody doesn't know how development works or how infrastructure works, unpack that for us.
Yeah, well, there's, you know, they have formulas, they have ways to do these things. But the fact of the matter is a commissioner that's active and working with staff to prioritize so that they understand why a certain project needs to be prioritized more. You know, on Schofield Road, there was a intersection that really needed a light. For 3 years, people have been complaining about this situation, and it took an election to get it done. So 6 months ago, finally, we got this little temporary, cool little light. But you know, I think it's kind of scary because for 3 years that was a dangerous intersection. People were having accidents, and then now we finally we get our stuff together. So it shows that the commissioner does matter. The prioritization comes from the commissioner working together with staff.
Yeah, right on. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Thanks for watching the interview today. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button before you leave. And by the way, again, if you're looking to sell or buy a house anywhere in Central Florida, we want to be your real estate resource of choice. Reach out at theorlandoreal.com/real.